Good evening and welcome to Sunset News. In this half hour, we bring you the latest local and international news, stories from the community, economic indicators, tomorrow's weather and sports. I am Glenn Rashipura and I'll be your host for tonight's show. Now, in the news tonight, the Ministry of Defense and Veterans Affairs will utilize the allocated $5.84 billion for the financial year 2022 to 2023 to put in place soft and hardware defense systems, assets, structures, and infrastructures. Now, this was said by Minister Frans Kapofi this week, who stressed that terrorism manifests itself in all parts of the world and that Namibia is no exception. Now, Kapofi quoted Arnold Wolfers in his speech, which drew criticism from the Landless People's Movement. LPM described Kapofi's speech as a dreadful statement in which the minister displayed Nazi sympathetic traits. According to LPM, Wolfers was a racist Nazi supporter, lawyer, and economist who dedicated a portion of his time idealizing the Nazi ideologies, in particular the regime's foreign policies. Now, in our next story, the locust plague in the Karas Hardap region is under control, according to the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. Now, yesterday, a swarm which was about 7 kilometers long was sighted over farms before Karasberg. Now, another one was sighted 2 kilometers before ours, and a farmer in Mariental has reported that the locusts are getting more and more by the day. In our next story, with an amount of 479 million Namibian dollars, the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism has to manage with less funding during the next budget period, according to Pohamba Shifeta, the minister responsible for this ailing sector. Now, he recognizes Namibia's community-based natural resource management program as the key towards attaining a recovery in the tourism sector. The minister is now gradually venturing towards a point where he wants to allow for the sustainable use of precious timber in the northeastern Namibia. Now, in our next story, it is worrisome to observe a downward revision in the capital budget allocation to the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, given the rising demand in education facilities. Minister Anangi Hipondoka, in the motivation of her ministry's budget in the National Assembly, said the backlog in permanent classroom is on the rise despite continuous efforts to build more classrooms. Now, the backlog currently stands at 4,479 classrooms countrywide. The demand for hostel facilities has also increased, and a total of 1,176 hostel blocks and 1,075 ablution facilities need to be constructed. The Ministry of Education is allocated 14 billion Namibian dollars, which the bulk going towards personal expenditure. Now, in our next story, the power struggle at Grootfontein Municipality, which has been making headlines for weeks, continues as the town now has two accounting officers with suspended CEO Kisco Sinvula forcefully returning to work despite a pending labor court. This follows just days after the Urban and Rural Development Minister Erastus Utoni summoned all the Grootfontein office bearers to Windhoek for a meeting last Wednesday on the issues surrounding the suspension of Sinvula. Now, it appears that the meeting did not yield any positive results as things have now gone from bad to worse, which is threatening service delivery at the town. Now, in our next story, Acting Public Enterprise Minister Ipumbu Shimi has allayed public fears that Transnamib will go the same route as liquidated Air Namibia, with the railway company remaining a strategic entity in the country's logistics hub aspirations. Now, this despite a legal bid by Belgian company Challenge Air to have it pay 161 million Namibian dollars for the lease of an aircraft by Air Namibia, at the time a subsidiary of the rail operator. Now, Challenge Air lawyer Sisa Namanje recently handed a letter of demand to Transnamib, seeking payment of 161 million Namibian dollars. Now, in community news tonight, we look at dogs attacking people, as well as Namib Red donating laptops to NAST and UNAM. More on this right after the break.
Go far with Paratus. Go further with Paratus Fiber. Paratus offering high-speed, reliable fiber connectivity, starting from only 599 Namibian dollars per month. Unlimit your lifestyle and visit na.paratus.africa for more information.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Welcome back. In our community talk tonight, in response to an increase in dogs attacking residents, the Ongwediva Town Council has launched an educational campaign to sensitize residents to safety around dogs. Spokesperson Jackson Muma says council recently held a consultative meeting to engage dog owners on how to handle the animals and to consult the public on the issue. This contribution is by Toyemo Haidula. Let's have a look.
From January to February 2022, Ongwediva Town Council has received reports of dog attacks amounting to 5, and that brought a concern. The council then engaged stakeholders, that is SPCA, NAMPOL, community members, and veterinaries. So we converged and we had discussions on what should be done, and as such several points were raised, and we reached consensus on certain issues that should be done. Number one is that dog owners in Ongwediva should make sure that their dogs are within the confinement of their yards, and the dogs should be vaccinated, especially against the rabies, so that at least we have a safer environment. The council will also visit schools and other institutions, especially where we have kids, so that we can teach them or educate them on how to handle dogs. In fact, we have reports that some of the school-going children, they throw stones and some objects to dogs when they're in the yard, and in the process agitates them and led them to be violent.
Namibre recently donated laptops worth over 3 million Namibian dollars to NAST and UNAM. Speaking here is board chairperson Faniel Kisting. Yamema Biekes was there. Let's take a look.
Forms part of Namibre's corporate social investment initiative in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The education sector experienced such a seismic shift in the execution of its mandate and needed to adapt to new ways of learning and communicating with students across the country. Students and lecturers had to operate from home and embrace remote learning. This shift came with the difficulties and new challenges for students as they had to adapt to the new normal way of e-learning. Due to a lack of resources such as computers and internet connectivity, many students felt left behind on the journey of education. Information obtained from the local media in 2020 revealed that approximately only 2% of the total school-going children had access to facilities required to have e-learning. UNAM and NAST had more than 8,000 students who did not have IT equipment in order to access e-learning.
In our story of the day, we look at a MOU being signed between the Environment Investment Fund and the Meteorological Services. More on this right after the break.
Have you received a loan from NSFAF? NSFAF loan is the same as any other loan. It must be paid and settled. NSFAF has a set of guidelines on how you can repay your loan and become debt-free. Therefore, it is important that you, a former beneficiary and a responsible Namibian, show your patriotism by helping pay back your loan and thus helping NSFAF become a revolving fund for the benefit of future potential students. By failing to pay back your NSFAF loan, you risk being blacklisted or having a court order against you. So arrange with the fund to pay back your loan today. For more information on how you can repay your loan, Visit our website at www.nasfaf.na or visit our Facebook page or Twitter. Do the right thing and hashtag payback the money.
Thank you for staying with Sunset News. Now, in our story of the day, the Environment Investment Fund signed a memorandum of understanding with the Meteorological Services on Tuesday. Namibia, like all other countries, feels the effects of climate change, and finding ways to assist the communities is vital. Yolanda Nell has more. Let's take a look.
A memorandum of understanding was signed between the Environmental Investment Fund of Namibia and the Namibia Meteorological Services in the Ministry of Works and Transport on Tuesday. According to the CEO of the EIF, Benedict Libanda, Namibia is facing increased intensity of climatic risks which have evolved in frequency and magnitude over the last decade, thereby impacting negatively on the development gains achieved by the country in the last 32 years of independence. The Kunene region is one of the most vulnerable regions in the country, severely affected by climatic-related shocks, particularly the prolonged devastating drought that have accumulated in the loss of people's livelihood, particularly due to livestock mortality. In order to mitigate against the systemic risks, development of an early warning system, which is an adaptive measure for climate change using integrated communication systems to help communities prepare for hazardous climate-related events, is extremely important. A successful EWS saves lives and jobs, ecosystems and infrastructures and supports long-term sustainability. In fact, early warning systems can also assist in planning, saving money in the long run, and protecting economies. The EIF, through the IREMA project, which is implemented in conjunction with the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, is busy rounding off the consultancy work that developed an EWS tailored for the Kunene region to the tune of 950,000 Namibian dollars. Further, through the partnership with the Ministry, 4 automated weather stations have been procured at a cost of 800,000 Namibian dollars. These will be installed at the project's anchor projects such as Warmkwal, Fransfontein, Kamanyap and Bergsag in Kunene region. The Executive Director of the Minister of Works and Transport, Esther Kapanda, said that as a nation we can impact positively on people with developmental projects through cooperation between government entities and private institutions. This Memorandum of Understanding is a perfect example of such a partnership which aims to improve the livelihoods of communities in the areas of interest. The Ministry is therefore excited to be part of this project, which aims to not only invest in the improvement of an integrated early warning system, but also strengthen public-private cooperation to reduce the detrimental effects of extreme weather events in the region through early detection, warning and action. According to Kapanda, the Ministry, through its Meteorological Service Division, plays a fundamental role in the production of early warning system as the custodians of climate and weather information interpretation and communication. The Ministry aims to provide the necessary expertise in terms of information and capacity building.
In economic news, we look at illegal drugs being seized at the Trans-Kalahari border post. We also look at the economic indicators. More on this right after the break. Do stay with us.
Go far with Paratus. Go further with Paratus Fiber. Paratus, offering high-speed, reliable fiber connectivity, starting from only 599 Namibian dollars per month. Unlimit your lifestyle and visit na.paratus.africa for more information.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at our economic news. Now, on 16th April 2022, parcels containing cannabis, crack cocaine and Mandrax tablets valued at 11.9 million Namibian dollars were seized at the Trans-Kalahari border post. Now, the consignment was seized from a truck which entered Namibia from Botswana following a non-intrusive inspection, scanning process and analysis by the customs officials at the border. Now, the images revealed that part of the load differed from what was declared in the document. A subsequent physical inspection uncovered 19 boxes that were not part of the declared consignment containing prohibited drugs. Now, next up, let's take a look at our economic indicators. The Namibian dollar lost ground against most major currencies except for the Chinese yuan, against which it strengthened. On the Namibian Stock Exchange, Capricorn and FirstRand stocks strengthened with 1.10 and 1.80% respectively. The local index is up with 0.46% and the overall index is up with 0.88%. On the commodities market, gold is up with 0.2% and oil is down with 5.5%. After the break, we take a look at the weather predictions for tomorrow. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Let's take a look at your weather predictions. Rain is predicted for the far northeast as well as for the far northwest. Enana is the hottest place in the country and will be at 37 degrees. Hobabas is quite cool in the morning at 9 degrees. In the south, the hottest place will be Luderes at 31 degrees. Rehoboth at 9 degrees will be the coolest. No rain is predicted for the southern part of Namibia. In the international news slot, we visit Wall Street, where Netflix stock lost 26%. More on this right after the break. Thank you for staying with Sunset News. Let's take a look at our international news story. Wall Street sent Netflix stock tumbling 26% after market hours, erasing about $40 billion of market value. Netflix says inflation, the war in Ukraine, and fierce competition contributed to a loss of subscribers for the first time in more than a decade and predicted deeper losses ahead, marking an abrupt shift in fortune for a streaming company that has thrived during the pandemic. Now, the company said it lost 200,000 subscribers in its first quarter, falling well short of its forecast of adding 2.5 million subscribers. Suspending services in Russia after the Ukraine invasion took a toll. The lagging subscriber growth is prompting Netflix to contemplate offering a lower-priced version of the service, with advertising citing the success of similar offerings from rivals HBO Max and Disney+. Now, the downdraft caught other video streaming related stocks, with Roku dropping more than 6%, while Disney falling 5% and Warner Bros. Discovery down at 3.5%. Streaming services are not the only form of entertainment buying for consumers' time. The latest digital media trends survey from Deloitte, released in late March, revealed that Generation Z, those consumers aged between 14 to 25, spend more time playing games than watching movies or television series at home, or even listening to music. Now, the majority of Gen Z and millennial consumers polled said they spend more time watching user-created videos like those on TikTok and YouTube than watching films or shows on a streaming service. Now, in sports news tonight, we have the draw for AFCON 2023, David Tem returning home, and Rugby Sevens going to Uganda. More on this after the break. Welcome back. Let's take a look at your sports news. Namibia football national team has been drawn in Group C with Cameroon, Kenya and Burundi for the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. The 2023 Africa Cup of Nations will be played in Côte d'Ivoire next year. Namibia last competed at the prestigious Africa Showpiece in 2019 during a time when Ricardo Manetti was the coach. It had taken at least 10 years before the country made an appearance at the Showpiece. Cameroon will be favourite to advance top out of Group C, while Namibia, Burundi and Kenya will all fancy their chances of finishing second. Now, Namibia's long-distance runner David Dem returned to Namibia yesterday after completing his last training session in South Africa. Dem, who competed in several 1,500-meter and 800-meter events in South Africa, which saw him clocking impressive times, will now shift focus to a big continental race in Botswana. His manager, Berthold Karumentu, is confident that it is just a matter of time before Dem becomes stiffer competition to the rest of the world. We surely hope so. Now, in our next story, the Namibia Rugby Sevens team will be competing in the Africa Men's Sevens in the Kampala, Uganda. Now, the team yesterday officially received its national colors ahead of the tournament in Uganda. The country's first match will be against Ghana on Saturday. All the best to our team. Now, after the break, we'll get into the highlights from today's broadcast. Do stay with us. If you're just joining us, here are your highlights. The Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs will utilize the allocated 5.84 billion Namibian dollars for the financial year 2022 to 2023 to put in place soft and hardware defense systems, assets, structures, and infrastructure. The locust plague in the Karas and Hardap region is under control according to the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. With an amount of 479 million Namibian dollars, the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism has to manage with less funding during the next budget period, according to Pohamba Shifeta, the minister responsible for this ailing sector. And with that, we've come to the end of the broadcast. Make sure you join Sunset News on Facebook on all the Animate platforms on weekdays, as well as on our website, oneup2.com. Sunset News screens on DSTV channel 285 and GoTV channel 94 every weekday from 7:30 to 8 p.m. I am Glenara Shipura, and this has been Sunset News. Don't end your day without us.